Hi there, and welcome to my studio in Cornwall. So here, I'm just putting in where I want the sky and the sea and the beach to be. So I've simply just drawn a line across into the paint. So the top section will be the sky, the mid section is the sea, and the bottom section will be the beach. I'm repurposing a canvas here, so I've just put on some white paint over the canvas, just so that it's easier for you to see what I'm doing. So in the midsection where the sea is going to be, I've just put some glue, PVA glue, and I'm just adding some sand, some beach sand to that area, because I want the sea to be very sparkly, and you'll see what I do later. So this is what I'm doing at the moment, just adding some sand to that area. And now I'm putting some texture paste into the foreground to make it nice and rough on the beach. And I just use ordinary household decorators filler paste, which you can use. You can get artist filler, artist paste, texture paste, if you like. But I always use ordinary, everyday decorators filler. And so here I'm using pigments, which are, you just add water to them. They're sort of like a very intense watercolor. And I'm using that to give me a really beautiful, beautiful turquoise blue sky. Very dramatic, very intense. So the pigments behave really like an ink. And as I said, they're sort of like a watercolor, but they're so much more intense color than watercolor. And so now you'll see that I'm covering that sand area, the area that's going to be the sea, with just a dark blue. I'm just using ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, and black for this. And I've covered it in the dark colour. It's just the preliminary colour, really. And foreground, I'm adding some sandy colours, some raw umber and some burnt umber and raw sienna and some cream into that area. The colours I'm using today are turquoise blue pigment, white, violet, gold, ultramarine, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, raw sienna, burnt umber, raw umber, black, and cream. So I've mixed some of the violet and some gold with a tiny bit of black, and I'm putting it across that horizon for a bit of a dramatic sky. So I've added an extra coat to the violet area in the sky, and I've also put a highlight of gold in there. And occasionally I think that my camera is recording and it isn't, so I apologise for that. But I've just dabbed a little bit of gold really, on top of the violet. So I'm just putting a layer of PVA glue over the very dark area that the sea is going to be the sea. And the reason I'm doing that is that I'm going to put white over the sand and to create a sparkly sea. And I know that that blue will leach through into the white area unless I put a barrier. So I use a barrier of PVA so that I don't get, you know, sort of like a pale blue surf. Okay, so while the glue is drying over the sea, I will lighten the sand area and add some random marks and things into it to make it look very patchy. So I'm just adding some random sandy type colours into the foreground where the sand is, and I'm using the raw umber and the raw sienna and the burnt umber and some cream, and later I'll put some darker colours, you know, patchy colours into the sandy beach area. And so I've decided to put a little bit more of the dark violet over the gold colour in the sky. Okay, so now it's time to put in, finally, the sparkly sea. And I'm using a white for this, but it's not a stark white, it's just got a little tiny bit of cream added to the white. You'll notice that I've also added some extra texture paste to the foreground on the beach. And as soon as that dries, I'll just go over it with those sandy colours, like I did originally. And so if you think you've got too much paint anywhere, you can either just dab it off with a damp cloth or scrape it. And alternatively, you can let it dry and then scrape into it with a palette knife, and that gives a nice effect as well. And so now the texture paste is dry enough anyway, and then covering it now with the light sandy colours again, raw sienna, burnt umber, raw umber, cream, and black. And it's just a question really of adding layers of colour and patches of colour, if you like, and just random, sandy colours, and adding some more darks into that area as well. So now it's time to add some yachts into that very stormy, boiling sea. And you'll see that almost immediately the sails of the yachts are turning blue because of the blue paint underneath. So although I made a barrier of glue on the sea, I forgot to make a barrier just on the horizon where the boats are going to be. So you see that that's not a good look at all. So, and what I usually do is, it's a lot more manageable if you work flat just to do the yachts. It's the same with birds. You need to put the canvas flat on a table. So you'll see that that's what I resort to in a minute. So I've decided to take out those yachts and replace them with new ones. So I took out the yachts. I just put some blue over, or some violet over, and then I put a layer of PVA glue and let that dry. So here you'll see me putting in the yachts again, and this time hopefully the sails will be white and not pale blue. These sails on the boats are little devils to do. I could have done a whole painting while I'm doing these sails, and that's why it's better if it's flat on a table, so that you've got more control, because they're very difficult to do on an easel. So I'm coming to the end of the painting now, just some little final bits and pieces to do. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. The channel can be supported by super thanks or simply by liking, sharing and subscribing. And with that, I'll say thank you so much for watching, and as always, love from Cornwall.